Morning everybody, welcome back to Sunday. Starting a little differently today. We're going to do a bit of tidying up. The tidying up is going to be on our little table. We're at a point now where we're starting to look at getting the final bits and pieces done on the table. So it's like I say, in my earlier post there is we needed to tidy up a few little things. Now during last week I built the little table support, and this is what it looks like. This is the flap support, so it just swings out and there'll be a little rubber mount that sits on top of there that the table will sit on top of. The table flap will sit on, and it'll just rest underneath there when it's not in use, and when Pam wants to use it, she'll just swing it out and the tabletop will sit on it. Now I'll show you that a little bit later on, but it's a bit long at the moment. I've got to dock it off and then round it over, so we don't want that sticking out the front of the table. But yeah, it's just a simple idea, nothing fancy. It's quite strong. It's got 6 screws holding it together here, so yeah, it should do the job. It's not as if we're going to have a lot of weight on it anyway, so it's just the tabletop, and anything else that Pam might put on it, she assures me she's not going to sit on it, so it should last. Anyhow, this is the frame at a stage where once we start pulling it apart, or I'll be taking that off today. I'll take the wheels off it, we'll get some paint on it, and we'll make it look a little bit more pretty than just radiata. So first thing I want to do today is I want to start work and do some dressing up of the tabletop. Now, tabletop at the moment, when I put the tabletop together, I cut the 4 pieces of material that I breadboarded the ends of, and what I forgot to do was I forgot to dress up the end of here. And when you have a look there, you can see there's some bandsaw marks on there, given that I cut it on the bandsaw over there. And I'd forgotten to tidy it up. So I'm going to do that first up. And like I said, all the little bits and pieces that you forget during the process of building these things, you know, it comes a time when you have to tidy them up. So that's what we're doing today. Once I've done that, disassemble the whole thing, take all the screws and things like that out, and I'm going to chamfer around the top edge of both of the parts, so this bit and this bit. Then I'm going to dock the end off our little table support, and then I'm going to make buttons. So it's going to be a busy little day today. I want to try and get everything done because next week we will be away. We won't be having a show. We've got a family thing we have to attend to, but anyway, I'll talk about that later. So first up, there's a whole heap of ways I can do this. I could take it to the sander and just sand the end off. That would be fairly easy, but it's a big piece and that's hard to hang on to. I could take it to a table saw, but I don't have one, so that's not going to work. I could put it in the vise and I could take my plane to it. I could do that as well, but it's quite a long piece and it's a bit awkward in the vise. So this is a technique that I've been using quite a lot with my track saw. So when I'm cutting this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a shaving off the edge of it, and the shaving is going to be a fingernail thickness. Alright. Now for those of you who like measurements, measure your fingernail thickness, because that's all it is. It's just a shaving. And I know this was square, but I'll check it anyway. Just to make sure that I've got my track saw square. Now if I had a Dave Stanton bench, I could probably just stick it down and use his bits of gadgetry that he has invented. But I don't have one, so it's a matter of I'll do the best I can. But like I say, it's only a fingernail thickness, so it's not very much. How often do you see if somebody came and asked you, well, how thick was that cut? Oh, fingernail thickness. I don't know that. Shifted it. Check my square. Just got to make sure that's perfectly square. Probably need some batteries. Now because I'm only doing a tiny little bit of a cut, I'm not going to hook it up to the dust extractor. I'm just going to take one fine cut off the end.
It's actually quick and easy to set up, isn't it?
So it doesn't take that long. That's right, Penny. It just doesn't take very long to set it up using the She'll Be Right method. Well, the fingernail.
Really nice little system, mate.
So it cuts really well, and just want to check my square. And it's perfectly square, not a problem on the end. And I didn't take all that much off. One of the things that one of the measurements that that Pam talks about or asked for was to have 1200 millimeters. And if you have a look at this, you can see it's 1199 and a half. So it's pretty close to the 1200. Particularly for this task, it's fine. So now it's just a matter of disassemble it, and then I'll chamfer around the edges. So find my screwdriver. The chamfer that I'm going to put on is not going to be very much. All I want to do is take the sharp edge off the top of the table. I won't be chamfering between the two panels. A lot of screws. 18 screws. Not going to come apart in a hurry.
Have you still got those numbered?
Yes. And that's a good idea, is to number just under the hinge. It's 3, 2, 1, 1, 2 and 3. And there's my...
I thought you were going to number the hinges.
The hinges are numbered, yep.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, so now all I want to do is I want to run a nice little chamfer around the outside edge of that. I'm not going to do where the hinge is, so that we keep a nice clean join when the table is up. So I'll just do those 3 surfaces, the same on the table. Let's just get this out of the way for a moment. Nice setup. The router bit that I'm going to use is our chamfering bit. For those of you who don't know, we have that made by CARROLL'S tool, and it's reduced down to most chamfer bits that you will purchase in a shop are generally around about 35 to 40 millimeters or 45 millimeters in diameter, due to the way they set up the angle. Now we've had to have it remade down to a 30 millimeter diameter so that it fits in the hole of the table. So it will actually drop right down into the table, like so. So what I want to do is I want to test a piece, so I've got to go and find a bit to test. I'll be back in a sec.
Oh, that was quick.
Okay, so just want to do a little test cut before I do anything. All I'm doing is taking the tiniest little amount off. Now, I'm not going to measure it, I'm just going to do a visual thing, and what looks nice will be the size I do it in. So if you're looking at a plan, often a plan will tell you how much to take off if you're doing something like that, whereas with a bespoke piece, you know, the plan is just a direction. Okay, ears on everybody. So that's taken off the tiniest little bit, just enough to round over the surface or give it a nice edge on it, so that you don't get this sharp edge here that can actually chip or cut you if it's sharp when you're working on it. So all we're doing is taking that tiniest little bit off. So
looks good.
That's quite a nice surface. So just make sure everything is locked in. All that's done, and I can do my tabletop. Now I don't want to do this edge here, basically because when we want the table down, when it comes back up, it'll have a nice sharp edge. So let's just do this bit. And I'm going to cut across here, so if I get any tear out on the end of here, I can take it off when I do down there. We shouldn't get any tear out, it's a nice clean sharp router bit. Okay, ears on everybody. you'll notice something, you may have noticed it and you may not have. When I started the cut, I pushed the cut in, so I pushed a piece of timber into the router bit until it touched the wheel, but I made sure that it was lined up with the centre of the router bit before I made the start. I didn't come in here like that and just roll it around. If you do that, you end up with a little roundover or a little chamfer where you don't want it to be.
Just show that again. Just show that positioning again.
So it's a matter of putting it into the centre of the router bit. So you push into the router bit till it touches the bearing, but make sure it's on the centre, right? Now when you get to the other end, where you want to come off, you bring the router bit to, or the timber to the centre of the router bit, and instead of flipping around the corner like that, you'll come to there and then pull it away from the router bit so there's no more cutting happening. Okay, so start on the centre of the router bit and you finish on the centre of the router bit. Otherwise you end up with a little round corner around here, which we don't want. So we've got this lovely chamfer off the edge of the tabletop, except for that bit there, which we want to have nice and sharp. So the same will apply to the big bit. So we'll just start on the corner again and we'll work our way along until we get to the end. Now when that happens, I'm going to have to swap it around a little bit. So ears on. And so that gives me a nice clean surface with a little bit of sandpaper and a cork block. Now this is a little piece of 400. It's not real coarse. What I can do is I can just tidy up any loose bits that might have occurred along that edge. Now what I haven't done is I haven't rounded it over. I've actually brought it up and I've cut it at a 45-degree angle and dropped it straight off so that it keeps all its visual effect by having just a sharp edge, just an edge. Just the light sand, and where you're holding the sand block, hold the block at 45 degrees. It may take a bit of practice to do that, but it will also give you a nice clean surface. Now, if you're keen and you want to do both top and bottom, I'm not going to at this stage. You want this done? Okay, so Pammy wants both sides of the thing done. So I'm going to run on that as well. So So as you can see, we do a few things on the fly. I actually hadn't spoken to Pam about that earlier, because her table, and like I've always said, you always look after your customer.
It just makes sense, as you're working on it, it makes sense to actually do the other side too, where I'd be sitting, having that softer surface is nice, and doing it now rather than asking later while you're in the middle of the process. Yeah, job done.
Okay, job done. Okay, so I've got to do this one too.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Cabinet maker's work is never done.
Just to tidy up with a little bit of 400. Incidentally, this is not going to get paint, it's going to get a clear finish. Haven't yet worked out which one yet. The frame is going to be painted white, so I need to put a coat of undercoat on that during the week and let it dry before I actually put a coat of ordinary finish on it. Okay, so that's my tops finished. It's just a matter of assembling those again. I'm going to put them out of the way because they're going to interfere with the rest of the day. So my next task is to take this off. I'm all over the workshop today. I've only got 2 screws holding this in because it was basically just trying to locate where it had to live. Now they fell somewhere. There's one screw.
And then, just there.
Oh, okay. Got the other one. So when I had that sitting up there, I've got a mark here where I'm going to dock it off. I made it way too long deliberately so that I could dock it to the right size once we had it located. So now it's just a matter of docking it off. I'll get my square and a pencil, just work out my line. When I'm making the buttons, I'm going to round over the edge of the buttons as well, and so here's on everybody. So that's going to live there. It's lined up with that. Now where I've put this is I've lined it up with the outside edge of the framework here so that when it swings right out, it'll only swing out to that far and into this far, so it's not going to knock on anybody. So all I have to do now is I have to round over the end of that. I'll do that when I'm doing the buttons, which is the task I'm going to do now. Oh, nice. So my buttons, I had one somewhere. Here it is. My buttons have to look a bit like this, right? So you can see that it's rounded. I used a domino cutter to cut the holes for the buttons, and that just fits into there like that. Now, of course, it's going to have a hole in here and it's going to be cut off about that long. Okay, I'm not going to stipulate a measurement, but about this long. And the reason I'm using a piece of timber this long to do this, it's a little safer for me to work on when I'm using machinery, is to use a bigger bit and just cut the end off it. It's the offcuts from the tabletop, so it's not as if it's an important piece of timber that I could use later down the track, but it'll do the task I want it to do. So domino cutter, I've dressed a piece of timber down. This piece of timber here is the correct thickness, and it needs to be the correct thickness because you've got to go from the bottom of the rebate that's cut by the domino cutter to the top surface, and maybe a little less so that it actually has pulling power and pulls the table down onto the table frame top. Okay, so that's probably about 1/4 millimetre.
So how thick is this timber?
It's about 18 mil,
Right.
which is what the domino cutter was set at 18 mil.
Right.
And I've got an 8mm domino in there. So one of the ways of doing it is to screw a piece of timber onto a domino. You just put a domino in there, but I'm not doing that. We're going to do it a bit better. So what I've done is I've marked my cut. So what I need to do is I need to remove, put it around the right way.
Just lean it towards me a bit. So
I need to remove all of this material on the top here into a little step like that. All right. So I'm going to do that on the router table. Get a few bits and pieces. Now the tool that I'm using for this one is going to be my tenon cutter. Again, this is a tool that Carby Tool made for us, and it's perfect for this job.
what differentiates our tenon cutter from other tenon cutters?
Right. That's what our tenon cutter looks like. Now these are the things, this is the characteristics of this router bit. Standard tenon cutter will have the same sort of setup where it has a cutting tooth on the top edge and a cutting tooth down the front edge. So it has the same sort of thing. But the angle of the cut on a standard one is about 1 degree. Ours is cranked over to 8 degrees to give you a much more shearing cut. Now, the tenon cutter does that. The other tool that we have that does that is our panel raising bit, which is exactly, so it's a bit grubby, but it has exactly the same characteristics, except it doesn't have the short, sharp edge like this one. It has a rounded over corner on it, so that you can get build a raised panel, have a rounded surface on it. That's the one that I generally use for the panels in the tops of quite a lot of the boxes that I make. This one can be used as well, but this one's actually quite good for this. Same diameter is 1 1/4 inches for those of you who use old measurement. So 1 1/4 inch. It just so happens that that 1 1/4 inch is exactly the same diameter, same size as a Brusso 1 1/4 inch stop hinge, which is also something that I use quite often in the bigger boxes. Just a bit of other information for you. Okay. So, what I want to do is I want to remove the larger section of that. So if I drop that round a bit down, let's come down a bit more. I can do a little test on this to start with, just to make sure that this little bit on the top of here actually fits into the domino cut. Okay, so lock that in there. Are we doing okay for time, Pammy? We're running halfway through.
Yep, doing well.
I was actually expecting one of the things when I came up to do the show today. Pammy came up and she said, "Well, what are you doing today?" And I thought, "Oh, that's right. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to do this. I've got to do that." And I'd forgotten half the things I was going to do. So we've got a list.
I wrote him a list.
She wrote me a list. So a list of all the little things you're going to do, which is pretty rare for me. I generally don't write lists because I'm a one-task person. I just do one thing at a time. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to set my LARK tool. Where's my domino? Here it is. This is my demo. So to set my depth, I set my LARK tool. It just happens to be 10 mil. That's the correct depth, this one here, because it was my, like I say, it was my demo. And use that to set my fence.
Really is such a clever little tool.
It is. If you wish to purchase one, have a look on the details below on our website, on our page, and there's a link to Derek.lark, who makes those LARK tools. And he's a very accommodating fellow and will happily send you a LARK tool anywhere you like. Okay, so now I need 3, 6, 8 dominoes. So on this piece of timber I could probably get all 8. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my rebate all the way along there. Now the reason I'm cutting it along this piece here is because I want the grain to run this way. There's no good doing it that way, because if the grain is this way, you've got no support for the domino. The grain must run along this way so that when you do get support, it's not going to bust. So I cut through there. What I could do is I could do a little bit at a time, but I'm going to do the whole lot at once. Push block out. It'll be a little dusty, Penny, so
Alright.
come around this side. Okay, so it's just a matter of working my way along. Incidentally, if you're interested in our little push block, these are our push blocks, so we manufacture. So there's also, you probably need to send us an email about those. Ears on. Okay, just going to go over and test that in a table. And it's a perfect fit. Beautiful. Oh, couldn't have got it better. First go. Alright, now I need to dock them up. So over to the tail. Dock all of those off.
So how wide will they be?
They're only going to be 20 mil wide, I think. You can measure that. $30 mil, 28 mil. dropping things all over the place. Just check to see that I've got it the right diameter. It's the right size. I'll just put another clamp on that. Okay, here's on, folks. Perfect size. Okay, so I need 8 of those. So I've got 8 of those, and I've got a little bit of material left over if I happen to damage one of these in the process of rounding things over. So, rounding them over. I have to round them over because the domino hole is round. I need another fence, which I forgot to get out. I have to find it again. This one here. Down the way. The round bit that I'm using this time is a 506B round over bit. It's a standard round bit you can buy at any hardware store, and this is the smaller one. There are smaller ones, but this is the smallest one that we sell. So that's what it looks like. Drink here. So just a standard round over bit, you can find them anywhere in any hardware store. You don't necessarily need to purchase a carving tool one, you can purchase one of a different brand if you like. Again, my little tester stick. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the stick up against the bearing and then put the fence up to the bearing, up to the stick. That means that I'm running straight along there onto the bearing and past. Now a little test. So the ears on, where are my ears? that's rounded over the edge of that, which will fit into the domino hole that I've cut in the side of the framework. Okay, so all of these are going to get a little bit cut off them. And that needs to come a little bit. I'll move the tail of the fence a bit. So I'm just going to cut through there. And I have to be very careful because it's close to the router bit. While I've got this set up, I've got to round over the end of my support stick so I can run that across there, and then I can do it that way. Okay, so we've tidied up the end of that and that's nice and smooth, and that's basically ready to assemble now. But I won't assemble it until such time as I paint it, so I'll have to take the screws off, take the hinges off, and then I'll get a coat of paint. Now it's going to be painted, it's not going to be the same as the top, but it just has to blend into the legs in the end. So back to our dominoes. The dominoes now need to have a little bit of a round over on the top edge of there. Now I can't do that with a machine, so they're going to have to be done by hand. But in the meantime, what I have to do is I'll have to drill a hole in here. So it needs to be countersunk on there and drilled into there. So I need to mark, and I'm only going to do a couple of these, I won't do the whole lot. I'm just going to mark some diagonals, find myself a centre, and drill myself a hole down through there. I've got it set up on the drill press at all, and then it's just a matter of docking the end off so that it will fit. So it's just a little bit of a muck around with those. But the nicer they are, you know, like it just sort of makes up the table, makes it sort of, all the parts are actually deliberately made, deliberately designed, deliberately put together, so that it doesn't look like just an afterthought that's stuck on there. So it's all square. Now these don't have to be all that long, so I'm actually going to make it square from this corner here, so that I've got actually just got a square. That's all I need to have. And my measurement
was 28.
is 28. Transfer that measurement across to the back. Okay, so now that I've got my first one, what I can do is I can set the LARK tool at the correct measurement. And then all the rest of them, it's just a matter of do that, and I can do that through the whole lot. I'm not going to do that. Just square a line here. Okay, now I've got a second LARK tool, a little black one. What I want to do is just measure the distance from there to here. Seems like a bit of a fiddle, but okay. Diagonally across there, corner to corner. Just giving me a centre. Okay, so I've just worked out where my centre is, right there. It's just a matter of drilling a hole now. Now, a few weeks ago I showed you these. I don't know if you all saw this, but these little drill bits with a countersinking centre in them and a little stop on it with a little rubber thing there, and that's a rotating I suppose stopper. But on here there's two. I won't set this one, I'll get another one. I'll just show you how they set. Now if you want to set the depth of your chamfer bit, the depth of the countersink.
Can you come out here into the light, Cole? It's really hard to see in that corner.
Right, if you want to set the depth of your countersink to a particular depth, you can set this to stop there, right? Now, the router bit, the Allen key that's in here, or the grub screw that's in there, will actually allow you to move your drill bit in and out. But to adjust this stop, it's a matter of just undo the lock nut on the top and then screw all of that bottom bit to the depth you require. So I'm just screwing all the way down there. Now, if that's the depth of your screw that you're using, and the countersinking part of the screw, then you just drill that into there, and then hold that in place and then roll this one down, and that will lock the two together. Now I bought these from Sydney Tools, so I assume you can purchase them from any of the hardware stores around the place, and there's a set of them, and this one here I think is a 7mm, okay, so a 7mm drill bit. So no, sorry, it's a number 7. It's 5/64, or no, 3/64 I think is the drill bit. So you can get them in a number of sizes. You can buy a packet of them with 5 or 6 different sizes in them. Now I've got the biggest one here in that pack, which is number 12, and that is, oh, I'm just trying to remember the measurement. I think it was, I can't remember. I'd have to look on the pack. But anyway, what that'll do, will allow me to drill a hole and then the counting at the same time. Stop where I need it. So you can get this U-butte set up so that you can just drill the hole at the same time, just a matter of putting a screw in there. Now, one thing that I have noticed, and I have to get a toothbrush to show you this, it's not the one I used this morning, but it's close, about the same shape. One thing I've noticed with this router bin, I'll come back out here in the light, Pammy, is you get quite a bit of build-up in there, so often you have to check it to make sure that you clear it out.
Just hold it still.
So you can see right in the corner there, you can see there's a build-up of material, and that is generally dependent on the type of material that you're using. The stuff I'm using at the moment is really soft, and you're going to find that it'll get a bit of a clog up there. So the idea is to check it regularly if you're going to use it and do a lot of holes. One, doesn't really matter, but when you're doing 5 or 6 or 7, or like we've got to do 8 of them, it's always a good idea to check. I'll just leave that there because I've got to use it again later. Let's try that again. So what I have is my button now, and all I need to do is dock the end off it, and it becomes quite a nice little button. So that'll just get docked off. Go to my drop saw. If you're not confident with the drop saw, don't use the drop saw. If you want to use a hand saw, that's a good idea as well. Little part to the thing is to file the little round over on the top edge of there, and that becomes our little button. So I'll go and do that. So over to the vise, just going to file. All I'm going to do is just take the edge off. I don't want to take a lot off. I want a snug fit. going to round that over. You can see it's now coming round. Let's try that, see if it fits. Voila.
And it sits.
Okay, and that's what your button looks like, and that's how it's going to end up. I'm going to make the whole 8 of them, and they'll all look exactly the same. It's just a matter of screwing the top to those little buttons. Now those buttons will also get painted. They're just a tiniest little bit. There's a little lip there. That means that pressure will pull up, and that will hold your table in place. Once you've got screws in here and you've got screws in there, there's no movement this way. Once you've got screws in here and here, there's no movement this way. And of course, we've got 8 of those tables in place. So that's what's going to happen with them, and they're just a nice, neat little idea, way to put them. The traditional way of doing them. You can buy little metal figure 8s. I know there's a lot of hardware stores around that carry them, but where you drill a hole in the top of the frame, screw the figure 8. I was going to go and find some for you so I could show you what they look like, but I forgot to. Screw into the top of there and then screw into there, but it's a metal bit, and I prefer to have this sort of system anyway. It allows movement of the tabletop whenever the humidity changes in your room. So that seems to be a really, really good idea. So that's where we're going to call it quits today. I'm not going to put everything back together at this stage. We won't be here next week, but the week after, what's going to happen is Pammy will have come up with the idea of what she wants in her little sewing caddy, which is going to accompany this table, and we're going to build that using dovetails and various other things. And as well as that, by that stage we'll have a coat of finish on this one, on this bit, and hopefully a coat of finish on the tabletop, and I'll put that together at the beginning of the show before we start the caddy. Okay, so it just shows a bit of a continuation. But like I said, we won't be here next week. We've got a family thing we have to deal with, and but anyway, it's basically the table is at a point where it can be a coat of finish and assembled and the job done. So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. It's been all over the shop, and I did finish everything on the list, so that was a really good thing.
Well done.
I've got most of that done. So have a good week, everybody, or have a good 2 weeks, everybody, and I will see you all in 2 weeks' time. Now, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Go onto live, and you get all of our videos in date order, and each of the projects is color coded. So have a good week, everybody, and I will see you all in a fortnight.